Brett Baer, the fact that he's shattering glass ceilings, yes, he's been on Fox News, he's traditional, he's been an anchor for a while, but it was that Kamala Harris interview, guys, where he exposed to the American people that Democrats do not care about the American people. And he exposed it in such a way because he kept pushing and asking Kamala Harris for an apology, and she never apologized. It was insincere, and it showed Americans, wow, even when she had a real opportunity to sit there, look Brett Baer in the eye, look Americans in the eye and say, I am so sorry. I'm sorry to Lake and Riley's family for the devastation, and I will roll up my sleeves and fix it on day one. He gave her 2 opportunities. That's why Brett's on that list. I respect a lot of the people, and they've continued to show that, yes, mainstream media is being eviscerated, but we have people like Brett Baer that are going to push through that and say, come back to some of the traditional media, because we do matter and we can get to the truth.
All right, guys, I hope you had a Merry Christmas. Hope you got everything you want. Maybe you get a little downtime. You're not running around trying to return everything. I'm gonna pause. That's my thing. I'll pause for a little bit, then I'll get everything done tomorrow. That's why I like get gift cards, because you know what? I know what I want. I know what size I am. I know that's boring. People hate that. But you know what? I'm a gift card kind of guy. Makes it easy. I had a great Christmas. I appreciate all of you tuning in. Looking already forward to not just New Year's, but we're getting real close to the inauguration. I'm excited for that. I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. What a year we've had. This is the last panel of the year. I looked at the calendar and I was like, it's still December, but next Thursday will technically be 2025. So this is it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the year in review. We've got a great panel. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you about 2 of our great sponsors so that we can get into this discussion uninterrupted and go nuts talking about 2024 and what we can expect in 2025. First, I want to tell you, if you are the person that runs a company or manages the company, and it doesn't matter how many people you have 5, you have 5,000. If you're in charge of that, I'm about to change your world, make your life better. Because if you haven't found Ramp yet, let me introduce you to ramp.com. This is a game changer for the people that have to run the finances for your company. So when it comes to expenses, vendor payments, accounting, all that kind of stuff, instead of chasing around expense reports and receipts, boom, Ramp is the corporate and expense management software that is going to save you time and money. It gives your finance team complete control over how much everyone spends. They issue virtual and real cards. It looks like a Visa card. They can go out, you control where they can go, how much they can spend. You have complete and utter control. Plus, you can make payments virtually as well. Setup is easy. You can get this thing going in less than 15 minutes. And it allows you to categorize everything, not run around and change. So it literally, like I said, will take you 15 minutes to set. And right now you get $250. Who doesn't need $250 after all the money that we've probably spent during the holidays? When you join Ramp, that's what you get, $250. You're welcome. That's my gift to you. Go to ramp.com/Spicer, ramp.com/Spicer to get started. I've got my team on it. It's so easy to do and well worth it because you're going to save so much time and effort. Cards are issued by Sutton and Celtic Bank. Members FDIC, terms and condition applied. All right. I want to tell you about one great guy before we get into the panel discussion, and that is my friend Leo Grillo. He is the founder of Delta Rescue. If you've been watching this show, you know Leo Grillo. If you're an animal lover, a rescuer of dogs, cats, doesn't matter. Leo Grillo takes care of everything. He has created the world's largest no-kill sanctuary, not a shelter. And I only say that because the first time I talked to Leo, he schooled me. He said, Sean, I get it. You're an animal lover. You've rescued, but this is not a shelter. We're not looking to send animals to get adopted. We bring them all in. It is the world's largest no-kill sanctuary. Malnutritious, dogs, cats, horses, it doesn't matter. Abused, neglected, abandoned. He takes them all in, and he's built this amazing, amazing facility that you can see at deltarescue.org. Go through the videos. Trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about. He doesn't rely on some government handout or some little earmark in a 1,547-page omnibus bill that Congress passed. No. Leo Grillo does it the old-fashioned way. He wants support from people like me and you because he's got a great thing going out there. If you can help, go to deltarescue.org, make a contribution. Better yet, if you look at the top, you'll see a little pull-down menu that says estate planning. Click on that. It might be of a tax benefit to you to make Delta Rescue part of your estate planning. So maybe you have an old 401k, an IRA, some stocks. Who cares? all of it, you can donate to Leo Grillo, to Delta Rescue. Keep this thing going on for generations. Please just do me a favor. Click on the button at deltarescue.org and think about it, pray on it, consider it. I really appreciate it. Guys, as we head towards the end of the year, if you're looking for information on the Trump transition, balls, parades, I can't get you tickets, I can't get you jobs, but I can tell you where to find it. All that information I put at SeanSpicer.com. It's free to sign up. If you didn't get someone a Christmas present, by the way, you're always welcome to sign them up for the VIP edition of it. It's a great gift. If you totally forgot, your sister, your brother, your uncle, go to SeanSpicer.com and say, oh, I just forgot to tell you, I got you a subscription to SeanSpicer.com. But it's free for everyone. You can get the VIP edition. Trust me, it's worth it. Lots of great information. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in the end of the year, the last panel. We save it. We call it the All-Stars. They're great. Everybody says they're amazing. Natalie Winters, she's the co-host of The War Room with Mr. Steve Bannon and an investigative reporter. The man himself, he carved out time. He got a big promotion. He's not just covering Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's covering the world now for Salem News. He got moved into that sweet spot. He is now big-time Chris Stigall, but he still made time for us. He's the host over there at The Answer, 990 AM in Philadelphia, and he's moving nationwide, worldwide. And Mehek Cooke, she's an attorney, political strategist, media commentator. You see her all over the place, but we were able to find enough Bitcoin in the couch to pay her to appear today. Thank you all for being here. I guess, by the way, I just realized I'm the only one of the four of us that didn't go to AmFest out there in Arizona. I felt like I was missing out. Mehek, how was it? I mean, I watched the clips online. I thought it was amazing. How did it go?
Sean, it was epic to be on the ground, first of all, and see so many young conservatives, in addition to older conservatives, coming together for the movement, excited for every single speaker as we're looking at President Trump's next administration. But I have to tell you, the Republican Party doesn't look like everybody else. We used to all look alike. Everybody was diverse in thought. They look different. They sound different, but we have one mission. It's making America great. So the energy was tremendous. It was an absolute privilege to be there.
Natalie Winters, I watched some of the clips you posted with Steve Bannon, that Charlie posted. I felt like, I don't know what, it was like a conservative Woodstock. Everybody was there. It was bigger than a convention. I mean, I honestly, I've never seen anything like it. And to Mehek's point, like, I felt like it was unbelievably diverse when I looked at the clips online. I was like, holy smokes. Like, I actually had a little FOMO. I felt like I was missing out.
Yeah, nearly 20,000 attendees. And I think what I am always so shocked at whenever I go to events like that is how just truly informed and educated and just ahead of the curve our audiences are. I know they're always sort of mocked and ridiculed by the mainstream media as being, deplorable or rubes or whatever. But the conversations one-on-one that you have with them, they're giving me tips, angles to look at, stuff that you don't typically expect. And I also think, too, I'm always so just, my curiosity is so piqued whenever I go to these events in terms of trying to understand what the left-wing equivalent of an event like AmFest would be. And I'm always sort of left with the answer that there is none. And I think when the left sort of asks themselves, no, we need a Joe Rogan, we need to figure out who our Joe Rogan is, I really think they should be asking themselves, who their Charlie Kirk is, who has the ability to put all their grassroots activists in one room, under one roof, despite all the differences, and create such a wonderful event like AmFest was.
Chris Stigall, the thing that was interesting to me, looking at the lineup of speakers, I was talking about this with somebody before the event kicked off. Like, there were actually more than that. There were probably 20 people that could have been headliners in themselves of a normal political gathering. And yet, I was just, at one point I was starting to watch online and I was just like, I kept going, oh, but I can't miss the next one. I can't miss the next one. That was one heck of a lineup. Over 3 days, there wasn't one person that I had to say, like, who is that? I mean, it was all, Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, Paul Saladino, the Food Babe. I'm not going to do it justice, but it was just speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker. It's an impressive lineup.
Yeah, Natalie hit it right on the head. It was an energy like I've never felt. I mean, we do these conventions a lot in various places for various events, but I have never felt just this kind of surging, thumping, almost 3-day, constant, almost rock concert vibe. And the young people in particular, it wasn't just young people, but the young people, and I'm talking about kids still in high school, the amount of information that they know, their readiness to get engaged, to get active, to want to get into communications like we're all in, they were hungry and they were organized and they were informed. And, guys like Scott Pressler and certainly Charlie, they talk about, look, yeah, we had a big win, but we're not stopping, foot on the gas pedal. And that's what you felt in this room. These people want to keep winning. It's not enough to have just won in November. Let's keep it up.
Yeah, normally after an election like this, everyone's like, oh, I just need to chill for a while. I was watching the crowd, listening to the excitement. I was like, this is amazing. Like people were like, and the other thing is, I hate to say this because I'm an old fart that doesn't want to travel, but I was like, this thing bumps up against, the holiday season, right? Yeah. And I the last thing I want to do, with all due respect to Charlie, is to travel to Arizona because it's a tough from the East Coast. But I was so impressed with the number of people that made the trip. I mean, like I said, Steve Bannon, Don Jr., you name it, boom, 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 boom. But that leads me to this is the perfect segue into sort of the analysis that I want to kind of touch on right now. Mediaite came out with their list of their top 75 most influential people in the news media, okay? And they cast what you would think would be a wide swath of that. So here's what I want to do. In the context of what I just said about how starstruck I was with the amount of folks that could headline any event that were there over, 3.5 days, 4 days of AmFest out there in Phoenix. This is their list. I'm just going to spare you the first 50, but I'll give you the top 25, okay? Number 25, Rachel Maddow. 24, the Women of the View. Number 3, Scott Jennings, the commentator over there. They're one of the only ones there on CNN. 22 is Nate Silver, the 538 dude. 21 is a guy named Kane, who I'd never heard of. He's apparently the left-wing Drudge, which I didn't know existed. 20 is George Stephanopoulos. 19, the host of Fox and Friends. 18, Caitlin Collins. 17, David Muir from ABC and Lester Holt of NBC. 16, Ben Shapiro. 15, Piers Morgan. 14, Jake Tapper. 13, Jesse Waters at Fox. 12, Rashida Jones and Mark Thompson. Rashida Jones, the head of ABC News. Mark Thompson, the CEO of CNN. 11, Greg Gutfeld. 10, Megyn Kelly. 9, Bill Maher. 8, Brett Baer. 7, Matt Drudge. I'll get to that in a second. 6, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski. 5, Sean Hannity. 4, Charlemagne the God. 3, Suzanne Scott, who's the CEO of Fox News. 2, Joe Rogan, and number 1, Elon Musk. All right, Natalie Winters, what do you think about that list of the top 25 most influential people in the media, according to Mediaite?
Well, look, I might be slightly biased, but I definitely think that Stephen K. Bannon should have been a lot higher than 34.
34, I know.
34. We only, deposed a sitting Speaker of the House for the first time in all of United States history.
Yeah, you need to up your game a little.
I will say, I think it's quite reflective of sort of the mainstream media's just refusal to let go, right? The white-knuckled kind of grip and just clasp on the idea that they still control the traditional structures of information. They were so triggered when Elon Musk sort of democratized the blue check mark, right? So this is sort of one of their last standing institutions to give themselves a pat on the back. But if you look at those top names that you just identified, they had absolutely no influence or sway over the outcome of the election, with the exception of, I would maybe humbly fact check you that Kane from Citizen Free Press, it's actually a more populist sort of conservative alternative to Drudge. Okay. He actually surpassed Drudge in traffic this year, which is amazing for a site. But
so I didn't know that. So wait, just explain this to me, because I literally was reading their write-up of this guy and I hadn't heard him. So explain to us, who's this Kane guy?
Sure. So it's a website called citizenfreepress.com. And I don't work for him, but he has been on War Room many times and is very much around sort of the populist conservative media orbit. So he actually came to the Turning Points. It was called the People's Convention, sort of AmFest vibes. It was in Detroit last year. He was supposed to come to AmFest this year, but it's just a stack of headlines similar to Drudge, though the formatting is almost more simple and clear. But I think that sort of interchange and interplay, like I said, he overtook Drudge in terms of traffic this year, sort of shows you that these old institutions, in this case, you're not talking about the left defending them, but sort of the more establishment or anti-Trump right or defending, are sort of dying out to their new up and coming, replacements. And I think you can almost broaden this critique out to more broadly the ideas that the left is currently grappling with, which is the idea that they have become the defenders of the institutions that they once so strongly detested, right? The DOJ, the FBI, the CIA, the State Department. They've sort of been forced into that role. I honestly don't think the Mediaite list matters all that much, right? But
No, I don't. I think it's,
Yeah.
I agree. To me, what I think is interesting is who they think is important. Because I agree with you. When Steve Bannon says something on War Room, people react on the right? And no one reacts. I mean, and again, this isn't like, I don't think that like, I have no problem. Like, I like Bret Baier as a person, but I think that like, when he is a newsy guy, right? When Steve Bannon says something, things move. When Piers Morgan says things that people, but I sort of, or Caitlin Collins, for goodness sake. I mean, their ratings are in the toilet. Let me ask you guys this though. And first of all, my apologies to Kane. This is why I love this show, because people like Natalie Winters come on and school me. And that's why I love, because now I will sign up. I will check it out. But Chris Stigall, did you know who Kane was prior to this?
Oh, I knew Citizen Free Press. I didn't know Kane was affiliated with Citizen Free Press.
I knew Citizen Free Press.
Yeah.
I didn't know Kane until Natalie informed me. Mehek, did you know this?
I didn't, but I have to respectfully disagree a little bit with Natalie, because that list actually pushes some people out into the media to talk about X. The fact that Elon Musk is number one, it tells you that the mainstream media no longer exists because you're elevating somebody like Elon Musk. I think most Americans, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or even an independent, they're saying Elon Musk is the guy to watch. So to have him number one, that gives you a massive nod to say mainstream media is the one driving the force. Let me tell you, Bret Baier, the fact that he's shattering glass ceilings, yes, he's been on Fox News, he's traditional, he's been an anchor for a while, but it was that Kamala Harris interview, guys, where he exposed to the American people that Democrats do not care about the American people. And he exposed it in such a way because he kept pushing and asking Kamala Harris for an apology, and she never apologized. It was insincere, and it showed Americans, wow, even when she had a real opportunity to sit there, look Bret Baier in the eye, look Americans in the eye and say, I am so sorry to those women that have been raped, brutally murdered, and killed. I'm sorry to Lake and Riley's family for the devastation, and I will roll up my sleeves and fix it on day one. She didn't have the audacity to even look at Bret. He gave her 2 opportunities. That's why Bret's on that list. I respect a lot of the people, and they've continued to show that, yes, mainstream media is being eviscerated, but we have people like Bret Baier that are going to push through that and say, come back to some of the traditional media, because we do matter and we can get to the truth.
Yeah, and look, I just want to be clear. I agree with you. Bret did it. That was a great interview. I think part of this is who are the most influential people, right? And I would argue that, again, is Bret really good at what he does? Yes. I think he's a straight news guy. But does he move the numbers and the movement the way that a Stephen Bannon does? I don't think so. And that's not disrespectful. It's just, is he number what, 8 on this list and Steve Bannon at 34, right? That's what I take issue with. It's not disrespect, but I do think
need both.
Okay, right. And I agree with you. I'm actually, the more that you bring this out, Mehek, I'm looking down the list, right? Let's look at the top 11. Gutfeld on the right, Megyn Kelly on the right, Bill Maher, he's high. Baier, right? And then Hannity at 5, Suzanne Scott, the CEO of Fox at 3, Rogan at 2, and Elon at 1. I mean, there is a domination of folks from the right in their top 10, which I think acknowledge is where the environment is. But let me kind of finish out this for a second. Matt Drudge, number 7. Okay. Chris Stigall, I honest to God can't tell you the last time I've looked at the Drudge report. I don't think that anyone I know in the conservative ecosystem says, do you know what I saw on Drudge today? And am I wrong?
Yeah,
I mean,
Matt Drudge, something. I
didn't even know that he still existed.
Well, I don't know what happened to him. Like, he popped the chip off the motherboard after Trump's first term, and I don't really know why or what happened. But yeah, like you, I stopped reading him, and I don't miss him whatsoever. I will say, we were just discussing Charlie. How in the world Charlie's not in the top 10, I don't know. I mean, Turning Point and his work in mobilizing the youth vote was epic. I mean, I mean, if I'm putting somebody in the top 10, not to kiss up, but I mean, we were just talking about Charlie's influence is huge, by the way.
Tucker's not in the top 10. I don't understand this. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk has got to be in the top 10 because, to Natalie's point, I mean, and Mehek's point, I mean, you gather a week from Christmas, 20,000 people with 3 days of top headline people. And the president of the United States, his son. I mean, all these people in one place, and Charlie Kirk, because it's not just a show. I look at this list. You're talking, I mean, the list is influential people. Who do people listen to?
How many people, I mean, Sean, how many people can get the president-elect from his home in Florida across the country for a speaking engagement? Who has that power? There aren't many of us.
But I mean, think about it. He has, again, not to go through the lineup again, Steve Bannon, PBD, Tucker Carlson, Callie Means. I mean, I was looking at this list. Boom, 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 right? And I'm thinking to myself, how is Charlie Kirk not in the top 10? Also, I mean, look, PBD, Patrick Bet-David, 47. Tucker Carlson, 27. Don Lemon is at 71, by the way. How does Don Lemon make any list of anything?
He shouldn't be on any list. That's
I didn't know that I mean,
I was going to say, Sean, I have to agree here too. I think part of this is they have to say yes to Elon, but they're terrified of Steve Bannon. That's why he's not higher. They're terrified of Tucker Carlson, and they're most terrified of Charlie Kirk because he's that grassroots activist that helped deliver so many swing states for President Trump. So we're not going to see a Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and so some of those others in the top 10 because media is terrified. They're terrified of the truth. They're terrified of people who elevate the truth, and they're most terrified that their jobs are going to be replaced by a Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk. So that's why they had to say yes to Elon. They did. He had to be number one. He's on TV.
I also think, too, it's sort of an interesting way to maybe analyze how sort of the mainstream establishment analyzes influence and impact. And what do I mean by that in terms of audience reach? Because I'm sure, right, Fox News programs are going to be dominating the network that airs Charlie's shows or even War Room, right? Real America's Voice. But if you look at, in my opinion, quality over quantity, and I'm not talking in terms of character or people, but just in terms of the audience who's tuning in, right? I think it's more of a passive viewer that you're going to get at Fox, whereas the people who are tuning in to the more grassroots oriented shows, much like Charlie's, much like War Room, you get a bigger, I think, ROI in terms of the information that's being distributed to them. And how I sort of took this list, or what I thought, which maybe didn't quite comport with how the writers or authors did, is that people that if you removed them from the media playing field, they were like, what would that difference be, right? What would the delta there be? And I think that a lot of the people that you rattled off, more so I think a lot among the left side of the aisle, they're just talking heads, right? They're just filling space. There's someone waiting to replace them. But I think among the Joe Rogan class, the Steve Bannon, and even Elon, those are more irreplaceable, kind of nuanced, distinct voices.
So I think that the key to me is how they framed this list, right? It wasn't who's got the biggest ratings or the highest viewership, right? That you can drive that metric, but it says who's the most influential. And that's, to your point, Natalie, I feel like, there's a big difference. George Stephanopoulos is on this list. People aren't saying, oh, what he says, I go do. Right? No one cares.
And furthermore, not only is he not influential, he's the opposite. He had to pay the president-elect $15 million. That's the opposite of influential. That's not good. We don't want to be paying out as members of the media if you're influential.
All right, let me just ask you this. Let's start with this. Do you guys all agree? I think that Mehek's description of Elon, I think there's no question in terms of influence. There's no way. I think that so much of the success that we've had is because he brought this platform back to life. Not just everything he said, but his influence, right? This is what this is. To me, I think Elon is the number one person because we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of what we did if we hadn't had a platform that allowed free speech.
Yeah, I would jump in here. I have to agree with this. He is number one, and there's a reason for it. And nobody can disagree with that. And again, he has not silenced anybody on social media. We have a diversity of thought and a diversity of voices on there. And there are Democrats, Independents, Republicans, whoever you are, you're able to not only actively engage with people like Elon Musk, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, you name it. You can literally sit there behind a keyboard and talk about matters that matter the most to you. And I think he's exposed also why the mainstream media is so bad. When you expose them and you give whether it's Steve Bannon's show or anybody else's show, an opportunity to have guests that have real experience rather than mainstream media that just peddles lies and misinformation from the left, then you've exposed the truth. And he's opened up a massive opportunity for Americans to thrive. I mean, even look at his opportunity to let people like me or anybody else make money off of X. There's so many ways that he's helped quantify what he is doing, and it's quality, but he's also showing quantity.
And I will jump in there and add, just last week, he took his AI product, Grok, and used it to shut down the CR that Mike Johnson tried to pass. I mean, that's unthinkable. Even just a few years ago, we would never have known what was in that thing and been able to digest it. He single-handedly, and that's why all the Democrats are calling him President-elect Elon. They're scared to death of him. He is he's a real threat to them, and they're trying to drive a wedge in between him and Trump as we speak because they don't want him around doing this stuff throughout Trump's entire term.
I also think it's interesting too, and that obviously it sort of suggests, therefore, I guess it confirms what Elon says that the liberals on MSNBC are always melting down about, but that X is the new media, right? You are the new media because all Elon did was essentially buy X. So even though they dispute that, it's kind of, it presupposes, right, essentially the idea that X is in and of itself a media platform, which yes, it is, but it's more of the social media vein, right? So I think it's sort of an interesting, I think, real world example, almost a tacit admission in the minds of the Mediaite kind of editor class that X is indeed becoming the new media, right? It's replacing all 74 people who were behind it. But I also think the sort of overwhelming force that is sort of dictating so much of this list, or at least it should be, is that so many of these censorship programs that I think Elon was instrumental in exposing and just sort of ripping those guardrails off, although that's too euphemistic a term, of Twitter, have really allowed voices like Elon, like Joe Rogan. I know I keep bringing up Steve, but I think that show is a testament that when you strip the sort of private public partnership, censorship collusion to really suppress the more sort of populist vein of information, you get a real reshuffling of the board in terms of who's controlling the information warfare space.
Well, and I'll say to Natalie's point, to Steve's tremendous credit, who on that list went to jail? Steve did. So, I mean, he gets a ton of respect, top 5 in my mind for just that alone.
Yeah, he had a great conversation with him a few weeks ago of what that was like. I mean, I didn't fully appreciate the fact, by the way, just side note, that according to Steve, he's the only person ever convicted of a misdemeanor to go to Danbury. I mean, this is insane what happened. I mean, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Let me ask you guys this, and you can't vote for yourself, so that makes this easy, so that way you don't get in trouble. You can't vote for me because, well, you could. But who do you think is the most influential independent media operator out there? So podcaster, they have a show, whatever. Who do you think right now moves the needle the most? And Elon doesn't count because he doesn't have a show, right? So let's take that out. Natalie can't vote for War Room. Stigall can't vote for. Actually, let's take Salem Properties off the chart so that you don't feel like beholden to Hugh Hewitt or Prager. But or Gallagher? No offense, but who do you think? Everybody, I just want to hear, who do you think the most influential independent media operator out there right now is, right or left? Mehek, you go first.
So I'd have to say Joe Rogan, because again, I like an individual that can reach out to all bases and bring them together. And the fact that he was able to deliver over an hour podcast with President Trump, where he was able to push and ask from hard questions to easy questions and brought listeners and millions of listeners from across the spectrum. I watched a massive shift, even in my own community, where people said, I'm independent or I'm a Democrat, but that Joe Rogan, I really trust him. He has built a community of trust. And I know you said independent media, but I have to throw another person in here. Mark Levin, I don't think he gets enough credit. He has an independent podcast, and the way he approaches issues, it's from the Constitution. It's the basis of life, liberty, and the Constitution. He drives values and principles from the heart and explains to the American people, this is what's happening. Here's the rule of law, and there's a call to action. And I think there's a power to that. When you explain to people, tear it down. Well, let me tell you why I'm going to tear it down. He goes to the Constitution every single time. I love that man.
He's brilliant. And I mean, I learned a lot about the law listening to him. So I'll give you that. And I'll let him. we'll allow the vote. Chris Stigall, who do you vote for? And you are you get the non-Salem personality card.
No, understood. That's easy. Mehek's right. I mean, Joe Rogan, it's almost impossible to not see it that way, simply because when you look at his influence in this past election, the fact that the Kamala Harris people were tied in knots and the country was literally waiting with bated breath. Will Kamala Harris make the trip to Joe Rogan's studio? And she said, no, he's got to come to us. And I mean, again, when you are in a place as an independent media person, that the candidate for president of the United States is bargaining with you, whether you'll come to them or you go to them, like, that's extraordinary. I don't know anybody in media that's ever achieved that but him. So I, just by sheer strength and force of his personality and his presence and his influence, his willingness to sit down with J.D. Vance for 2 hours and change or whatever it was, Trump saw the value in that. Vance saw the value in that. Kamala Harris ultimately got so scared because of the value of that. She knew she couldn't hang in a long-form conversation, and I think he made the difference in the close of this election.
Natalie?
Okay, I definitely concur with what you guys just said, but to just vary it up a little bit, I think my answer, though vague, would be whatever next American citizen is going to step up and fill the void of the mainstream media. What do I mean by that? Look at the, Haitian Springfield eating cats and dogs story. That was started by a Twitter account, just one person who in their backyard, they realized that stuff like this was happening. And I think you've sort of seen that trend replicate itself over and over with different stories that really just kind of capture the minds of the American people. And then, of course, they get smeared as misinformation agents and that, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. But I think that it's that ability to push back on sort of the, establishment sanctioned narratives on certain issues, obviously immigration being a touch point in that case. But I think 2024 had a lot of sort of heroic citizen journalists, but I think that trend's only going to continue into 2025.
Fair enough, and I agree with you, but is there somebody that you think right now, if somebody got a trophy at the Indies, who would be deserving of the trophy? Because again, I agree with you. The one-off stories happen because somebody creates that moment, they put it out there and it gets pushed. But who right now that has an existing show would get the trophy?
I think I would have to go with Joe Rogan. I hate to be a conformist and agree with everyone.
No, it's not a conformist.
I think I agree.
Okay, so Rogan, and I get your point. I think you're all like, I'm not that far off on this, because I think to go for 3 hours, and I think Chris Stigall, like I enjoyed your point, which is it's one thing just to have value on the right, which I love, but the fact that Kamala's team understood how important it was to go see Joe Rogan and to debate whether to go or not actually shows you that he's such a populist on a lot of the things that he discusses that it transcends party lines to the point where they want to go on there. Now, I'm sure Steve Bannon would love to have, Kamala show up on the War Room and get grilled, but she's never, ever going to enter the War Room. I mean, she can't handle the room, never mind the War Room. All right. That being said, let's kind of tweak this just a bit. Who do you think, if you had to, and we did a poll on the show that Signal did, but who do you think was the most effective surrogate for President Trump? And I wouldn't put Joe Rogan in there because Joe Rogan, well, he did endorse him at the end. Okay, so maybe I have to put Joe Rogan in. Who do you think from a 2024 standpoint, not to President Trump, to the cause, who helped the conservative movement the most? Natalie Winters, I'll start with you first. Let's just forget, it could be and Trump, but who helped our movement advance more this year?
I think Scott Jennings pushing back on CNN. I think that was really a sort of media outlet that produced a lot of, I think, those sort of culture war, debatey, fighty clips that I think the American people have really missed since 2016. To me, when I was watching those clips, it kind of brought me back the deja vu of like the 2016 era culture war, which I think just brings in more independence because it actually makes politics fun to watch. That's sort of maybe a hyper media bubble focused answer, but that's also the life that I lead. So that would be my answer.
Natalie, let me ask you something before I move on to actually, let's go around the horn. And then I want to come back to you on something that may be interesting. Mehek, who do you think was the person that helped move the movement more than anybody else?
So I think I'm going to do a tie again here. I think it's Charlie Kirk because he moved young voters. He looked to digital technology and he changed the landscape of how people vote and what voters look like in America. But you have to couple that with Scott Presler. Look, I think the RNC made massive strides. Scott Presler was in all of these swing states, mobilizing voters that don't look like most of us and saying, I'm here, I'm going to help you and register to vote. I saw many interviews where he was even with the Amish community in Ohio. I've talked to them and they're like, that tall man, he's come out here before. People know who Scott Presler is, and they're so motivated because there's somebody actually coming and saying, I will help you. I will register you. It's something that the Democrats have done best, and Scott Presler has found a way to forge ahead and make a massive difference. And that was the game changer. We finally got organized and we finally got ahead of the game rather than waiting at the 11th hour and saying, oh no, we have a vote to declare. We need to make sure we're registering. We need to make sure we have illegals off the ballot. We had a game changer, an agent in this election. I think it's, again, a tie between Charlie Kirk and Scott Presler.
Chris Stigall, who do you think fits that bill?
Yeah, I agree with so much of what Mehek said. I'd have to only give the edge to Elon over Charlie simply because, but Presler is the tie with me too. I was going to say the tie between Elon and Presler, and this is where I get specific to Pennsylvania. Charlie did great work on the college campuses in Pennsylvania, but it was Presler and it was Elon who almost relocated. In fact, Scott's case, he did move to Pennsylvania. He bought a house there and took up residence in Pennsylvania. And between him and Elon giving away literally lottery tickets, $1 million to prove you're registered to vote in Pennsylvania, I think those two men did more to bring Pennsylvania home and ultimately the election than anybody else.
Interesting. The funny thing is, as you guys talk, I was thinking, because I had something in my head and I changed, and that's the beauty of going last. Because I actually think Mehek's got onto something. The sort of, in my mind, the runner-up is America First Works, Scott Presler, Charlie Kirk, these people who went out and broke the mold onto how we do business. They did stuff, and I would get calls during the campaign. Oh, it's never happened like this before. What do you think? The RNC's outsourced everything, which we know wasn't the case. But these guys, Scott Presler, America First Works, the Sentinel Action Fund, Charlie Kirk, they broke the mold, and their door knocking, their registration changed the business as to how we did it. I will say this. If I had to give someone a prize, though, I would say I would harken back to what Chris Stigall said earlier. Elon tanking that bill, 1,547 pages. Let's just be honest. Had he not sent that tweet, that bill would have passed. All these guys were running for the hills. They wanted to be home to go to the Christmas parties, and they would have passed it had Elon not said, are you nuts? Here's what's in the bill. And Vivek, too, by the way, because we read it, and here's what's in it. And that says something.
I will also add on X, Sean, X is also, if you remember, speaking back to Pennsylvania, it was because of X, real time, on the ground, in the moment, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, got shown to be cheating. They were exposed for closing down the polling early, and we got 2 extra days of mail-in voting in Bucks County because of X. Again, real time, that instant. It was a ground game like we'd never seen before.
Natalie Winters, let me ask you this. If you were talking to someone like me, I don't look it, but I am actually in my 50s. If you said, hey, Sean.
Are you saying you look younger or older?
Oh, way younger.
Hello, that's awkward.
Way younger.
No, the way
she's just been to Charlie's event, Sean.
Yeah.
It sounds deprecating.
You know what? Charlie doesn't want me at AmFest.
Yourself.
I'm the guy who's going to walk through the hotel at 7:30 and be like, you kids need to keep it down. I'm calling security. All right, Natalie Winters, if you had to suggest to me somebody that is in your age group that is having a huge influence on how you think, who would that be? Who's got a show, who's got an account on X or one of those other platforms that is driving news and influencing people that I probably don't know?
Well, I go out of my way to avoid anyone else in Gen Z. So you're sort of asking the wrong person because I always joke that I'm a boomer at heart. But if can answer that question by proxy or by extension for some of my younger friends, I think Alex Clark has become a really popular and salient voice.
Listen, I know Alex Clark. I'm not that much of a funny dud. Well, I love Alex Clark.
Audience, yes, among young women in particular. But I also think, too, that the beauty of social media and sort of the reins being taken off of X is that, these questions, who is the one person that has the most influence, that they're sort of a relic in the sense that it's not the way that media is disseminated anymore. Like, yes, it definitely is sort of closely tied up to the personality of one person. People like Joe Rogan or yourself or Steve can gain trust with an audience. But the beauty of X, of Instagram, when they're not censoring everything, is that you can sort of have an amalgamation of all these different voices together. And I think that maybe the real MVPs are the X, coders and people who are behind the algorithms that are sort of allowing all this information to come together and come out in front of, young people, old people, all the same.
Mehek Cooke, if you think about the cabinet that President Trump has assembled, the new members of the Senate and the House, and let's not limit ourselves to that. Let's just say but who do you think, if you had to look into your crystal ball and say, if we have this conversation at the end of 2025, a year from now, who are we going to be talking about that's going to stand out, right? Of all these picks, of all these people, and it doesn't have to be I'm just saying, who do you think is somebody that you're keeping your eye on right now that you think this person's going to be a rock star and we will be talking about him at the end of 2025, him or her?
Hands down, Pam Bondi. I think she's understated. I think people have already given her the nods because she has the creds. But remember, we've all gotten here because the rule of law was eviscerated. We've all gotten here asking questions about why Steve Bannon was in jail for a misdemeanor, why President Trump has been shot at and we don't have any information, 2 assassination attempts, why the FBI targeted school members that were coming as parents to talk about their children, why President Trump, going back to him again, most important, because then this trickles down to people like you and me and so many other Americans, why he was targeted in all of these states and why election interference occurred. She is going to tear it all down and build it up with the rule of law, with experienced, talented attorneys that are going to bring faith back in our judicial system. And once you have that, I think all the other places will work. The DHS, open border crisis, the illegal immigrants, all of that needs processing. It needs really intelligent attorneys that are going to follow what our Constitution says. So not many people are talking about Pam Bondi because it's like, check, she's experienced, check, she has nothing in her background. She's going to be the one we talk about the most at the end of the year.
All right, Chris Stigall, what do you got?
I know it technically doesn't fall under cabinet, but he's already
No. Anybody.
Okay.
It could be any human that is living.
I believe the guy we're going to hear more about than anybody else we're already hearing a lot about, and that's Tom Homan on the board.
Oh, you stole mine.
Yeah. Tommy Homan. He is busting eggs all over the place already, and he hasn't even started yet.
Oh, I think okay, good. Natalie Winters for the tie. Who do you think?
Well, I reverse engineer this with my calculation being who is the mainstream media most upset and most triggered by. Usually the question is what? Qui bono, right? Who benefits? But I guess in the case of Pete Hegseth, would it be qui malo or whatever, who is triggered by it, who doesn't benefit? And I think it's obviously the military industrial complex. So I think if he gets through, which he should, I think he'll be a very interesting one to watch since they're already so apoplectic over his potential confirmation.
You know what? Just to mix it up, I'm going to say RFK, but I think that Natalie is onto something. The more that the status quo is threatened, I mean, every one of these picks, this just tells you what we can expect in the Trump 2.0 administration, because the status quo in the food, pharma, military industrial complex, DOJ worlds are all about to get shaken up. And this just tells you, I feel like there should be like somebody filming all this so that we can go back and watch it because it's going to be a thrill. I want to ask you guys a series of questions as we kind of wrap up, though. Just give me what you think, yes or no, weigh in quickly. Let's start with this, Mehek. Do you think that TikTok is banned, yes or no?
Yes.
Chris
Unless
Stigall,
an American company takes it over, yes.
Really? Okay, Chris Stigall.
Not a shot. Too many young people, there would be anarchy. No way.
All right, let's talk to a young person. Natalie Winters.
Always honored to be the token young person. You guys are all young, though.
Well, you've already called me old.
No, the way you phrased it, you sounded self-deprecating, and I was confused because I was like, you don't look like you're in your 50s. But I digress. We can make that into a TikTok. I think there's no chance. It should be, but I think the lobbying effort that ByteDance has mounted on Capitol Hill and the crisis actor teens that just want to make their dancing videos, they'd never let it happen.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I think it should be. It is a threat to national security, but I have a feeling that enough people are going to lobby, and guess what? Money's going to talk on this one. All right, let me ask you the next thing. Do you think that there will be a takedown of drones in New Jersey once Trump becomes president? Mehek?
Yes, 100%. And I
Chris
think
Stigall.
they're probably ours.
Okay.
Yeah, Mehek's right. They are ours. Trump will tell everyone they're ours so that nobody's nervous about them being up there, but it's the why they're up there that's kind of interesting.
Natalie Winters.
Yes, and any future spy balloons too.
Yeah.
All right. How about this? I had Eric Prince on earlier this week, talked about whether or not we were going to take over Greenland. And he actually made a really compelling case why there might be a deal. Mehek, do you think that we end up, by the end of the year, have some financial or territorial claim in Greenland?
No, I think we need to just worry about our borders right now. What? We don't need more people. We need to figure out what's going on in our country.
Okay, Chris Stigall, are we going to own part of Greenland or no?
Yeah, I'm betting against that one.
Natalie Winters.
I don't think so, but I think Panama Canal has slightly better odds.
Okay. Yeah, no, actually, I don't know. Eric Prince convinced me that we might have a chance. I didn't realize how close we were the last time.
What if Tom Hallman sends all illegals to Greenland?
Oh, see, this is what's going to happen. All right, last question for you. Does the NCAA ban trans athletes in 2025? Mehek Cooke.
Yes, President Trump's banning it through law. They're going to get in line.
Chris Stigall.
They will not ban it, but they will be pressured heavily.
Natalie Winters.
I don't think so. They will try to be an example and stand in the breach against President Trump's transphobia.
All right. Guys, thank you for being with me on this final panel of 2024. A lot to look forward to in 2025. What a great, great shows we have planned the rest of the week, well, tomorrow, and then obviously next week as well. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow on Friday, and then guiding you into the new year to 2025. Thank you all. Look forward to seeing you. Remember, you can always sign up at SeanSpicer.com for that newsletter if you're looking for information on the transition or the inauguration. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.